Have you ever heard of the December 7th, 1941? No. Well, it's a date that will live in infamy. As the Imperial Japanese Navy devastates the US Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, a lone American dive bomber pilot, flying innocently towards the base, has no idea he is heading straight into the heart of the attack. This is the story of Lieutenant Clarence Dickinson, a man who experienced the shock of the surprise attack from the air, and who would, just days later, help deliver America's first major blow of retaliation. Welcome to the Deep Dive. On that fateful morning, Dickinson and his gunner, Radio Man Third Class Miller, were taking off from the USS Enterprise as part of a group of SBD Dauntless dive bombers headed to Pearl Harbor for some much-needed R&R. Their aircraft carrier had been at sea for months, and the men were looking forward to a good night's rest and maybe even a hot meal after enduring life on the open ocean. The pilots didn't know it yet, but they were about to be thrust into the fight of their lives. As they approached the island, Dickinson noticed a huge plume of smoke in the distance. At first, he thought it was a controlled burn. Then he saw the black puffs of anti-aircraft fire. Pearl Harbor was under attack. The pilots quickly made radio contact with the Enterprise. Learning there had been a surprise attack, there was nothing they could do but press on. They were now flying straight into the teeth of the Japanese assault. Within minutes, everything changed. Suddenly, two Japanese Zero fighters burst from the smoke and dove on them. The Enterprise's planes were no match for the agile Zeros. In the ensuing dogfight, Dickinson's wingman was shot down in flames. Only one parachute was seen. Dickinson was alone. He struggled to maintain altitude against the relentless Zeros, desperately trying to buy himself time to get out of the danger zone. But the Imperial Japanese Navy was too strong. Soon enough, the inevitable happened. More Zeros closed in on him. His gunner, Miller, fighting bravely from the rear, radioed, "Mr. Dickinson, I think I have got one of them," after scoring a hit on a pursuing fighter. But the odds were impossible. Miller soon reported his worst fear. "I've expended all 6 cans of ammunition. We are defenseless." Traces streamed from the pursuing Zeros, streaking past his cockpit. One of them grazed his arm, ripping his flight suit. Blood streamed down his arm, burning into his eyes. In the chaos, he felt a violent shake. One of the Zeros had managed to rake across the fuselage, tearing it apart. He knew the end was near. With a sudden surge of energy, he banked sharply away from the Zeros, banking so hard that the plane stalled. He prayed that the force of the turn would throw him clear of the plane. But it was no use. They were hitting the water feet first. In a moment of pure instinct, he yelled for Miller to jump, though he feared it was too late. The altimeter read 800 feet, not high enough for a parachute to work. Dickinson snapped his radio cord and unbuckled himself. He looked back to see Miller struggling with his parachute. He could see the terror on the young sailor's face as the plane began to spin violently. As the world tipped over, he heard Miller scream once, twice, and then he was gone. The Dauntless had disintegrated. Dickinson could feel himself being pulled from the wreckage. The ground rushed up to meet him. He braced for impact, and then his chute opened. The world seemed to slow down as the wind rushed past him. He was alive, but his friend Miller was gone. After free-falling hundreds of feet, Dickinson landed safely on the beach of Ford Island, a small island within the larger island of Oahu, where Pearl Harbor is located. He quickly made his way to the airfield and saw a large plume of smoke rising in the distance. It was the USS Nevada. He sprinted towards the smoke, hoping to help. As he neared the stricken ship, he saw bombs falling from the sky, strafing the decks with bullets. When he got closer still, he saw who was dropping them. Japanese bombers flying back and forth. They were in serious trouble. He turned tail and fled. finally reaching a place of safety. He reported in. He was needed up in the air right away. He ran as fast as he could to the Enterprise, fueled by a singular purpose: revenge. He had watched men die. Now he wanted to take the fight to the Japanese. Just 4 hours after the attack, the Enterprise took off. Under the furious command of Admiral Halsey, the ship steamed full speed toward Pearl Harbor. Halsey gave the order to turn the battered fleet around. It took less than 6 hours to refuel and rearm the carrier, and as soon as it was ready, they were back at sea and racing toward the supposed location of the Japanese fleet. They were hunting, and the Enterprise crew were eager to strike back. Halsey ordered the best chance at retaliation: a pair of scout planes, searching for Japanese warships. The hunt was on, but it would take 3 days to bear fruit. It was December 1941. After days of searching, the Enterprise's planes finally spotted a Japanese submarine on the surface. The I-70. It was a perfect target. The pilot dove straight down, releasing his bombs. The Mark 13 bomb hit home. The sub crash dived, but not before the pilot dropped another bomb that damaged its ballast tanks, forcing it to remain on the surface for repairs. There was no escape. A sea of flames surrounded the Japanese sub. It was trapped. Dickinson was part of the next wave, sent to finish the job. He spotted the wounded submarine and pushed his Dauntless into a steep dive through a hail of anti-aircraft fire. He ignored the tracers zipping past his cockpit and pushed on. He knew what awaited him at the bottom of the dive. He couldn't pull out now. The Dauntless lacked speed at low altitudes. He wasn't sure he could gain enough airspeed to make the turn if he tried to pull up. So he pressed on. He was almost there. He yanked the stick back, pushing the throttle to max power. He released his bomb at the last possible second. It struck the water near the sub's hull. The explosion blew Japanese sailors from the deck. The I-70 attempted to dive one last time, but was fatally wounded. It slipped beneath the waves, leaving a massive pool of oil and debris on the surface. The I-70 had become the first major Japanese warship to be sunk by the US Navy in World War II. Later, when Dickinson flew back to the Enterprise, he learned the news. The previous day, the Marines had landed in the Pacific island of Wake. The Japanese garrison was holding them up. He requested to be taken to the island to see if he could be of any help. Dickinson had paid the price of war. He knew how terrible it was. He had lost friends, and he wanted to do what he could to help the living. As he approached the island, he saw Marines pinned down on the beach. He immediately began dive-bombing runs, driving the Japanese back. When he arrived at Wake, he found it in ruins, mostly destroyed from Japanese artillery fire. He spent what little time he had delivering supplies to the beleaguered Marines until it was time to get back to the Enterprise. For Clarence Dickinson, it was a moment of somber vindication. He had avenged his friend, Miller. He had helped save the Marines on Wake. He had done his duty. For the United States Navy, it was a crucial psychological victory. Just days after the shock of Pearl Harbor, they had proven they could and would fight back. The sinking of the I-70 was a signal. It was the first step on the long, difficult road to victory in the Pacific, a road that would lead through the Coral Sea, Guadalcanal, and ultimately to Midway. It's a story that reminds us that even in the darkest moments, resilience and the will to fight back can change the course of history. What do you think was the most important turning point in the Pacific War? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into history compelling, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell for more. I'm Rana Asif. Thanks for watching. US Navy diver walks through a sunken Japanese ship during salvage operations in 1946. This photo was taken approximately 11 years after the attack on Pearl Harbor.